What a week it has been. Oh, my friends, what a week it has been. And we are still in the middle of a crisis that continues to unfold. Our brave firefighters are still tirelessly working to contain these fires. Live embers still smolder in the burn zones. For some, the immediate wave of flame and escape and smoke have subsided, but the rising tide of worry and loss and anxiety and stress has just begun to rise, and it will continue for quite a while. In 2018, I visited Chico and Paradise, days after the Paradise Fire had hit. That was my territory. I was the Canon to the Ordinary in Northern California, and I went up there to be with those who had lost everything and those who were helping them. At a cafe in Chico, I saw a bowl, and it was filled with keys. I asked about this, and there was a collection of all the keys, hundreds and thousands of keys to homes and cars and businesses and studios that no longer existed. 18,000 keys were collected to locks that were melted or burned or destroyed. Those keys were collected and turned into an 800-pound sculpture of a phoenix that was then put in the town of Paradise as they were beginning to rebuild and regather. Today, this day, we have so many who are carrying keys in their pockets, keys that they used multiple times a day, that they have on a special keychain or with special labels, or that are hanging in their right by their doors or in a dish that are no longer needed. Painful reminders of what has been lost. This disaster is bigger than any one of us. But do not despair. Everyone knows someone who has lost everything. Yet anyone can do something to help, and no one can do it all. In the Talmud, we read, "Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now." You are not obligated to complete the work. Neither are you free to abandon it. Neither are we free to abandon it. These wise words remind us that even the smallest efforts contribute to the greater tapestry and the greater life of healing that is ahead of us. Just yesterday, I stood on our patio with Casey, one of the priests from St. Matthew's, as the women from their church gathered as in a retreat that was supposed to be held up at the Sarah Center, and they relocated here. For some, it was their first time seeing one another since the fires, and each woman approached our church with their own story of grief, resilience, harrowing escape, loss, survival, and a healthy dose of gratitude for all that has been given to them in this. Care and love and connection received well. Their grief, along with keys in their pockets to homes that no longer exist, weigh heavily. Grief requires acknowledgement. We've talked about that so much, and it requires acknowledgement before it can begin to diminish, before it becomes a little lighter. It diminishes and becomes lighter only when it's shared or recognized by another. And sometimes that has to happen over and over again, and it takes years. And then something happens and your old grief shows back up again, and you're like, you again, I thought I was done with you. That's happening now to so many in this community where old grief has cropped right back up along with new. The listening is also happening. The connection, the healing, the sharing of one another's burdens. While this disaster has struck on a massive scale, we can't even imagine, actually, the healing only happens person to person. If you could write a check for all of the billions of dollars to make everything right, the healing would still only happen person to person, because that's where healing happens. These intimate connections are the powerhouse for transformation in community. The grief comes in waves, and some of them are manageable, like little ankle-deep waves of grief and sorrow that you can handle, and then some of them are like tidal waves that just knock you over. And the key here is to have somebody next to you, or you to be the person that is standing next to them and hanging on for dear life when that wave hits. So here at All Saints, some of us are directly affected by those fires. Some of us lost everything, and many others of us are 1 degree removed, 1 ring out from that. Your homes and neighborhoods may be intact, but your friends, your dear friends, many dear friends and family are displaced, have lost everything, grieving and in deep need. Many of you feel the ripple effects of this. If you clean houses in the burn zone, you don't have work anymore. If you're on a project in the entertainment industry that's on hold because the musicians or the actors or the producers have to deal with their crises, or if the project has been put on hold, you're in crisis because your work just dried up. I'm hearing that from our people. And many of you have been helping by donating, and we're sending the money right back out to help folks through that hard spot, through the rough month, to get back on stable footing. Loss takes so many forms, but we're all hardwired to share it through empathy. And we're called to be present for those navigating these waves of trauma, whether it's lost income or a lost household. It's trauma, and we're here to help one another. And I see All Saints as kind of a base camp for that, a place for refreshment and renewal. For those of us who can offer that, we come here for renewal so that we can go out and help those who are so deeply impacted and offer strength and compassion and care to those whom God has given to us. The gospel story of the wedding at Cana, it is a perfect reminder of our work today. This is the third of Christ's Epiphany showings. You just thought there was one with the wise men, didn't you? No, there's three. There's the wise ones came and Jesus was shown to them. Jesus was baptized and the dove descended. The voice of God came out. This is my son with whom I am well pleased. This is my son. Listen to him. He was revealed to be the Son of God in that moment. And this is the next one. It's his first miracle, and he was shown to be the Son of God, the one who can bring water into wine. This reveals how God's abundance pours forth in response to human effort. Human effort, we thought Jesus did this miracle. Well, let's listen carefully. In Cana, when the wine ran out, Mary recognized the need first. Maybe she was in the kitchen, maybe she was just paying attention. She's a woman, she noticed that the wine was running out. And she called Jesus into action. And like a good son, he said, Mom, I am partying. I do not want to deal with this now. Because he was. Weddings were 8-day events. All of his friends were there. And he's like, Mom, give me a break, okay? And then he hesitated, but then also like a good son, he listened to his mama and he went ahead and took care of things. He could have just brought wine into those stone jars, right? I mean, he was right there at the creation of the entire universe. He could have made new wine. But what did he do? He instructed the servants to go get water and fill the stone jars, which they did. Those jars are gigantic, okay? So they had to carry like gallon jugs and come and pour them into the stone jars. This was a big effort on their part. And they filled them to overflowing. They didn't just kind of fill them and then do the minimal. They did as much as they could. Many, many trips to the well in Cana. It was labor, but Jesus then took their effort and turned it into abundance. By my measure, about 180 gallons of the finest wine. Someone here tell me how many cases of wine that is as you're coming out the door. It's many cases. So this pattern repeats at every Eucharist as we say, blessed be these fruits of your hand, or the fruits of your creation. That shows up in every one of our Eucharistic prayers. This bread and this wine from your creation that human hands have made. That gets transformed into the living wine, the living bread, Jesus in us. God blesses the work of our hands, inviting us to partner in with his miracles, and he does that every day of your life, and we offer the work of our hands to the service of God and the gospel of healing and wholeness. That is the simplest way to put this, my friends. That's what you're called to. Is to offer yourself in the service of God and the gospel. In today's epistle, St. Paul urges us to use every gift that God has given us: prophecy, ministry, teaching, exhortation, generosity, diligence. And as amazing as you are, not one of you has all the gifts. I know that might be hard for some of you. None of you has all the gifts, okay? Each of us were given a unique set of gifts and blessings so that we can offer that specific thing in the world and serving the Lord. And the first thing he asks us to do with those gifts is to love sincerely, to love with mutual action and affection, to love those who are grieving and those who are rejoicing, to love the lowly and even love those who persecute us. This abundant love, these abundant gifts, this abundance of the living wine, it mirrors the servants' efforts at Cana. And if we can embrace it, we can be confident that we will witness even greater signs. We will be the hands and the feet of Jesus right here in this world that needs us so much. And in times like these, in times like this, it is so natural to feel frustration at not being able to do it all. The economy, the enormity of this grief, this enormity of this trauma, the enormity of the destruction that has taken place in our community, it feels overwhelming, doesn't it? It just feels we cannot imagine it. Only God can stretch his arms wide enough to embrace it all. Only God can comprehend the radiating ripples that are happening out of this. Our individual reach, it may be small. It's about this big. Michael's is bigger. Michael has a big, wide reach. Big wingspan over there. But we can embrace this much. But together and with God, our arms and our efforts become exponentially greater. So this church, All Saints in Beverly Hills, right here where we are located, is positioned to be a refuge, a well of living water for those in need. near, impacted by this crisis, but not at the center of it. That's a gift. And we can use that, and have already used that to be a refuge for those in need, the immediate need of coming to a safe place, a safe and sacred place for prayer and connection and comfort. Each one of you can do the same. Here, in your own homes, in your own lives, God has given you people to take care of, to listen, to comfort. And you have no answers, but you have arms to hold and ears to listen. And by caring for the people in front of us, we will continue to discern God's call to greater service. We've only just begun. We have only just begun what we can offer. And God will use us for his miracles, just as Jesus used the simple materials of water and stone jars. Together, we will become the living water that will pour out of this place, and we will be a place of feasting and joy. This disaster, it is bigger than any of us. So don't despair. Don't despair. Everyone knows someone who has lost everything. Yet anyone can do something to help. And no one can do it all. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete this work, and in fact, you cannot complete this work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Amen.